Hi everyone, welcome back to Mad Barn Academy. And if you're new here, welcome. If you like this presentation and the other videos on our channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. We really appreciate the ongoing support. So today we're going to cover a topic that's been quite popular on our social media recently, iron overload. Horses need iron in their diets. It is an essential trace mineral. But is it necessary to supplement extra iron? When does extra iron become too much iron? And what is iron overload actually? Well, let's talk through some of these questions and an action plan if you're concerned about high iron levels in your horse's diet. So let's get started. So iron is an essential trace mineral in the equine diet. Its most important role has to do with its high affinity to bind oxygen. Metalloproteins using iron are part of hemoglobin and myoglobin. I think most of us recognize hemoglobin from high school science class. It's required for oxygen transportation in red blood cells. Myoglobin is very similar to hemoglobin, just smaller, and it stores oxygen in muscle cells for cellular respiration. Iron is also essential to various biochemical processes in the body, such as DNA synthesis and ATP production during aerobic metabolism. So iron deficiency in horses is actually extremely rare because horses are very well adapted to absorbing iron from their gut. Horses are hindgut fermenters, which means they break down fiber in their large intestine. The breakdown products of fiber fermentation, called volatile fatty acids, can actually enhance iron absorption from the colon as well. So, the established requirement for iron in the equine diet is between 40 and 50 milligrams per kilogram of the diet, depending on the animal's physiologic status. It is accepted that horses will meet their iron requirements from forage and or water intake alone, since most forages typically contain anywhere between 100 to 250 milligrams per kilogram or ppm of iron. And then the maximum tolerable level of iron intake is thought to be around 500 ppm of the diet. So visualizing what these numbers actually look like in the diet can be really hard. So I thought it would be helpful to walk through an example calculation. So for our example, we're going to start with an average sized horse at 500 kilograms or 1,100 pounds. Generally speaking, horses will consume about 2% of their body weight in dry matter daily, which equates to 10 kilograms of dry matter, which will simplify to say 10 kilograms of hay. When we plug that into our iron requirement calculation, that equates to 400 milligrams of iron daily for this horse. Now let's look at how much iron an average hay will provide. We take our 10 kilograms of dry matter and multiply by the iron level in the hay. For this example, I chose 150 ppm, which equates to 1,500 milligrams of iron. Wow, that seems like a lot. As we can see, we are well and above meeting requirements with hay alone. This number might seem really scary. Is this horse iron overloaded? The answer is no, because this is within the expected intake for an average quality hay. But let's see how this number stacks up against the maximum tolerable level. It's the same calculation, but we're multiplying by 500 ppm this time. That equates to 5,000 milligrams. We still have a really long way to go before we reach this level. And when it comes to iron overload, a horse that overconsumes iron intermittently over the course of its lifetime really isn't thought to be at risk. The concern is when excessive intake occurs day after day after day, long term. And what this example calculation is really meant to show you is that hay alone is going to meet your horse's iron requirements. Okay, so obviously, many horses aren't just on hay or pasture exclusively. They are receiving some other feedstuffs, whether that's a concentrate, a ration balancer, or some type of vitamin and mineral premix. The important thing to realize is that products like this will contain some amount of iron. This is because iron is a natural component of ingredients used to make these products, like plant-based fiber, protein, carbohydrates, etc., as well as some mineral salts. Some products will add extra iron to their formulation, but not every product will list that amount on the label or on the guaranteed analysis. So, to determine if there's iron added to the product that you're using, you'll have to scan the ingredients list. You're going to be looking for ingredients that use iron or ferrous in the name. Additionally, we consider mono or dicalcium phosphate as an iron-containing ingredient because this salt tends to be naturally heavily contaminated with iron. So, what actually happens when a horse becomes iron overloaded? This is still an area of active research, and we've been able to extrapolate from human research in many regards. There are kind of two avenues in which excessive iron is thought to affect the body. Primary effects describe direct effects of excessive iron, while secondary effects, which are on the next slide, describe induced mineral deficiencies caused by excessive iron. So, some of the primary effects of iron overload include liver damage. The liver is the main storage site for iron in the body, and excessive iron accumulation can damage the liver over time. Though fulminant liver failure is rare, thankfully, unless the animal is quite young. Oxidative damage is another effect. Iron's high affinity for oxygen means it can form these hydroxy free radicals, which then damage cell membranes and other tissues. Immune suppression is another effect, and this occurs via impairment of kind of normal immune cell function and normal immune system responses to pathogens or antigens in the body. And then lastly, exacerbation of insulin resistance is thought to be related to iron overload, though it's still unclear if iron overload is truly a predisposing factor to insulin dysregulation and metabolic disease. It is thought that high insulin may enhance uptake of iron from the gut, so it could be a consequence of IR. Maybe it's a predictor of IR. We're not 100% sure yet. Unfortunately, when it comes to the primary effects of iron associated with iron overload, there aren't really any clear-cut symptoms. Often the clinical signs are going to be fairly nonspecific with kind of an insidious or chronic onset. So, secondary effects caused by iron overload are related to induced deficiencies of other trace minerals, namely zinc, copper, and manganese. Iron competes for the same transport enzymes in the gut as these other trace minerals. So, the more iron that's in the diet, the more it's able to outcompete these other trace minerals, potentially leading to secondary deficiencies. Clinical signs consistent with secondary mineral imbalance include poor hoof quality or brittle hooves, a dull or bleached hair coat, and then red ends on dark mane and tails. The diagnosis of iron overload is usually achieved by assessing iron levels in the body. The gold standard for testing is serum ferritin, which is only available through the Kansas State Veterinary Diagnostic Lab at this time. It is not advised to use the iron levels on routine blood work like the biochemistry profile because these levels are really subject to fluctuate. Nutritional factors such as simply consuming a meal prior to having blood drawn can falsely elevate serum iron levels. So ferritin is the better estimate for whole body iron stores. Other diagnostics, depending kind of on the case or the horse, may include looking for evidence of liver damage, like elevated liver enzymes, abnormal findings on transabdominal ultrasound, or even a liver biopsy. And then additionally, insulin testing may be warranted if metabolic disease or insulin resistance is also suspected. So the treatment of iron overload is really dietary modification and reducing excessive dietary intake of iron. This means you have to identify the sources of high iron in the diet. Additionally, we'll look to ensure that the diet is overall well balanced to address secondary mineral deficiencies, such as by adding extra zinc and copper. It is also often recommended to add milk thistle to the diet for cases of iron overload. Milk thistle or silymarin is an antioxidant that provides targeted support to the liver. And it is also an iron chelator, meaning it can bind to iron and help remove it from the body. All right, so let's wrap up with a few key takeaways about iron overload. Firstly, horses are thought to meet their iron requirements from forage and or water alone. This means that high iron supplements or feeds are not going to be necessary. Secondly, if you're worried about iron overload for your horse, serum ferritin is the best way to diagnose it. So, if you're looking for ways to be proactive about iron or reducing iron in your horse's diet, I recommend the following. Start with a forage analysis and water testing. I've included a link to our forage testing in the description below. For water testing, you can contact your local health department to facilitate testing, just because it's going to differ kind of region to region or municipality to municipality. As a side note, we follow the human standard for iron in water, which is 0.3 ppm. If that water source is greater than 0.3, you may notice a metallic taste to the water. There might be a rusty colored sheen or kind of rusty color to the water. And then you also may notice some mineral deposits or kind of rusty sedimentation to buckets or troughs or around spigots. Additionally, I recommend avoiding high iron supplements, and then using milk thistle prophylactically is also fine. If you're unsure if your horse's diet is balanced or if it's providing too much iron, don't hesitate to reach out to a nutritionist for advice. I've also included a link to our free diet evaluation service below. All right, so here are references for today, and thanks for listening. I hope that you found this short video helpful. If you're concerned about high iron in your horse's diet, using these tools can help you determine if your concern is warranted and help guide your dietary plan moving forward. So don't forget to like and subscribe and check out the additional links that I've included in the description below. All right, thanks guys, until next time.